We stay in contact and we just don't discuss it because there's a lot of people who try to find out by following us or contacting us where we are, what our movements are, our whereabouts to try to get to George. I'll only say that my mom has gotten to see George. Now, I won't say how many times or when, but yeah, definitely, that's his mom. Dad's been criticized, throughout all of this. I think that weighed on my soul a little bit. Same thing with my mom. I heard sheer terror in her voice the day I turned 31, and that was the day that the Black Panthers had put a price on George's life, wanted dead or alive, $10,000. I thought it was just ironic that George was the registered Democrat convincing us to be, voting for Obama because it would move the country forward, make us more colorblind. Now, after this situation, I really try to hear race, and if there's racial inflections or overtones because of the situation in anything I hear, in any story that I come across, or in any situation that confronts me or something that I have to react with, I really look out for race, for anybody's race, as either an indictment on their credibility or as some way to advance or further some kind of agenda on both sides. I don't think this is about picking sides, and I don't think anybody's race has a place at the table. When people throw around words like that, like murderer, or other words, or other suggestions, in fact, that are not facts, it can actually be a deadly situation for our family because people believe things like that they hear. And that's been the situation since the beginning of the case. But our main concern was that this was a malicious prosecution, that there was no and is no real probable cause to actually justify that affidavit. His lawyers come out and said that now. His lawyers come out and said that he doesn't see anything that amounts to murder too in any of that affidavit. Now, that doesn't mean that wasn't our position then. It just means that as a family, we have to let justice run its course, and there's some things that are far more credible and appropriate to come from someone's attorney than to just hear them from someone's family member. And just as Mark had this tidal wave of information to contend with at the beginning of the case, our family has had a tidal wave of misinformation to contend with before this was someone's case, so to speak. Before that April 11th date, since February, this has been at the forefront of our minds every day, strategizing how we're going to survive from one day to the next day. So Mark has been very clear in his charge to, and from everything I've seen, in fairness to Mark, very ethical in his charge to represent his client zealously. I'm just as clear in my charge and try to be just as ethical. I will represent my family zealously because I know better. I know that we're not racist. But unfortunately, if you're going to take on the mistruths that are perpetuated in the media, you have to actually confront the media at some point and be out there and push back on some of the things that are being alleged, unrebutted by people describing your family. Now that there has been discovery started by the defense, or well into discovery, and there's a judge that's going to handle this case, presumably through to the end, was the time for me to speak out about my family. Because if you do not rebut, like Martin Luther King said, there comes a point where silence becomes betrayal. And if you do not rebut what people are saying, such as, for example, the day after I went on Piers Morgan, Natalie Jackson saying, you have the right to say about whatever you want about your family members, I guess, but you don't have the right to destroy Trayvon Martin's memory in the process. If no one takes exception to that in the media as journalists and says, well, why would you say that this person is destroying Trayvon Martin's memory in the process, then it falls to me to do it. I don't think jumping to the conclusion, well, clearly because he was a racist, that's why this happened, is an answer or an outcome that's acceptable in this day and age for anybody's race or anybody's background or color. I think we really have to say, this is a question that we're going to ask. Let's wait for the results of this investigation. Let's see if, in fact, those questions are answered. And when they're answered, contrary to what you might have expected or believed, to actually accept those answers and believe that perhaps this really just is self-defense, and maybe somebody really was telling the truth, and maybe that's exactly what happened.